Hi, welcome to class. We're the only two right now, but the other ones will show up eventually, right? I hate my life. I hate my life.
And Professor Sunreis Productions!
Hello class, Professor Sunreis. Sorry for the awkward loading. I'm trying to do the best which I can here in my living room. But anyways, in today's class we're taking a look at an in-depth deck profile of my Horus Bystial deck list. I actually got to do some really decent real-life tournaments and I got really good results in a 40-ish person OTS championship, or I don't know, big OTS, giant OTS, whatever. I got second place, only losing to a Heartbreak into a lost die roll. And then afterwards I was at our locals and did a very small tournament, but only played against really good players. And I got 4-0 there, and overall over the whole tournament I lost a shit ton of die rolls and the deck still performed insanely well. So now with the good enough real life testing and the testing I did in theory and also on Dueling Book, I figured it is time to showcase the at least not final bit, but I think it's like 90% there, build of my Horus Bystial. So without further ado, don't forget to seal pass on the subscribe button, leave some feedback down below, and let's get right into the video. So like I said, with enough real life testing and theory sessions and everything else, I think we are at a very confident and comfortable slot with this deck, and I'm really enjoying the playstyle. It's definitely very still Dragon Link focused, but it definitely feels very different to Dragon Link. And is it definitely better? I'm not 100% sure. They both have their quirks and benefits and their cons, but overall it's really fun and I can only highly recommend. So for the Bystial package, we are at 41 main deck card, by the way. 3 Rebellion, 3 Saronir, the best cards of course. Getting access to is very important. Then I played 2 Drew's Worm. This was the 41st card, 41st. For multiple reasons, I wanted one more slot in the side deck, and I figured it's fine to go to 41 and add the additional Drew's Worm. But more importantly, unironically, is I wanted to always be able to send something with Saronir. Of course, most of the time it's going to be a Rebellion, but sometimes this deck struggles to get Starks into the grave, and Saronir being able to send another Drew's Worm, or like any Dark Bystial for that regard, is really clean. And if you only play one Drew's Worm and one Magnamut, you don't have anything to send because this cannot send itself. So having the ability to send a Drew's Worm or like any Dark Bystial, like I said, is really clutch, and it did come up a little bit. But more importantly, Drew's Worm is just an insane card going second. You could even play this at 3 and cut something else. I wouldn't know what, but this would feel definitely very fine. So I really like this card. And then 1 regained, no Branded Beast whatsoever, not even the side deck. I did side it a long time, and I always put it in going first, never went for it. The times you get drolled, and then you can still go for these are usually fine because you have a shit ton of non-engine. Not non-engine, but a shit ton of engine as follow-up. You get the regain for even more follow-up, and post-side you prepare for draw anyways, and you try to play impactful non-engine to counter it. Talents, you could play Thrust into something, you could play Cold Bar, you could play Floodgates like Spellbound. So overall, I figured I wouldn't need the Branded Beast, and I might as well save me the side deck slot, but more importantly, save me the brick in grindy games. For example, if you get draw, games usually get very grindy, and I had a lot of times that I would just hard draw it, and I'd rather not play it and just settle for the regain. And the times where you mill your regain and you then don't have access to it are very far and few because you try to play around it. And if you mill your regain and you can still do full combo, Branded Beast getting that regain is not going to be the reason you win that game. It's 100% just you having full combo because the deck still has good enough follow-up even if you don't have a regain. It can hurt kind of bad, but in the end, I never lost the game because of it. You always play around it, and the times where you can only play because of the Horus engine and you milk your regain are definitely fine because at least, hey, you got to play at the game. So I figured it would be fine. For the rest of the dragons, we have 3 Safer, definitely the best one. The best starter in the deck, Insane Mill. Just really insane. You really want to see this. 2 Black Metal. This card is fine. It's a little better in this version because we can also mill it and then just summon it with the Zombie Vampire and have like an amazing extender to push into boards. This also helps unbreak Resonator so that you can at least get it on the board to link climb. Overall, I wouldn't play more than this because we play a lot of normal summon dragons anyways, and because we don't play the rockets, which can always be summoned out by the boot sector, we really don't want to play too many normal summons. It's fine because we can use a lot of them for discards, for example Safered. All of them basically, apart from Black Metal, are decent discards depending on the hand, so I figured it would be fine. You definitely want to play this one though because you want as many good dragon search targets as possible. With Safered Black Metal we already have 2 for the grind game, which is really important so that the Magnamut regained hand loop is actually a win condition, because if you don't play good enough dragon cards, Being able to have a shit ton of advantage doesn't really do anything because you don't search anything. You don't put any pressure onto the opponent. And with black metal, you put a lot of pressure on. With Sacred, you can put a lot of pressure on. So overall, these really, really help. Chaos Base, of course, probably still the best starter in the deck. This can do a shit ton of nasty plays. It's in a good mill as well, which is really, really helpful. Just randomly milling this and getting a +1 feels so good. Wish this card would be at 3, the deck would be even better. Though maybe a little more susceptible to hand traps, but overall it would feel nice. For the rest of the dragons, the baby dragons, what I learned about this is these are not nearly as strong as they were in the Dragon Link version with the rockets, because Striker Dragon cannot add back Recharger, and then you cannot go for like 3 dragons on board, for example, like get Redemdy, summon Dissipator, summon Borderland, or to some degree a combination of those. You can't do this because you don't play rockets, so these are literally just 1 card on the board if you save them for follow-up. That means that you can freely just discard them to extend your plays. You would much rather have a Levy hand trip than save this in hand. In Dragon Link, sometimes the play wasn't that obvious. Sometimes you would just save them and not go for a Levy hand trip, but in this deck you would 100% always do that. Just these are not as crazy in the grind game, and you will have definitely good enough grind game that you don't need that one single body. Speaking of Redemdy, very, very important card. It's also a good mill. Because you can just summon it and then you get 2 bodies instead of 1. Really, really good. Levy, the cornerstone of this deck, you always try to end on it. You can end on this more than even Dragon Link, and usually Dragon Link could always end on it if they had a playable hand and they didn't get disrupted. But because of the mill 4, we can end on it even more. And apart from that, we are just as consistent as Dragon Link. So it really, really helps for the ceiling of this deck. And that's really nice. And then 1 Ringo Worm and 1 Samsara for the last dragon. Samsara, I think, is really, really mandatory, especially in this version, because we milled so much. Ringo Worm, you could argue to not play, but what I really like about these 2 is, first of all, they're normal summons, so you can unbrick your Bystial. So if you have these plus Terrania, you get to play the game, which is really, really good. And if you have like 2 to 3 card combos, both of them are actually insane normal summons, and they really, really help. So if we have them plus Horus, plus like a Terrania or Lubellion, these are actually really, really good normals. But more importantly, these are like the extra copies of dragons you want to have for a grind game. So figure we go first, and we went through, for example, a black metal. So we got these out, we used our Levy, and then we got a Sacred into the graveyard to get the Levy, for example, and we maybe recycle it of Dissipator. Now we have a Magnamid add back in the end phase, which will then get us a Druze Worm. So we got this out of the deck, and then we have the opponent's turn. In the opponent's turn, we summon a Magnamid of the Regained, and we summon 1 dragon out of the deck. And we always want to get value out of these. So if we already went through all of these are pretty much given. Sometimes we can save this because we didn't start with it. Maybe we started with a Sacred. We always want to be able to get 2 pluses in the opponent's turn, if that makes sense. So Magnamid can then search a Ringo Worm for insane synchro plays in the next turn. Then this is a really good normal summon in turn 3. And Seal can summon a Samsara Dragon or a Black Metal if we didn't already use it, going into the graveyard and then floating in either the opponent's turn, searching the Redemdy, or in Samsara's case, in our turn, getting us a Magnamid back, for example, or a Druze Worm, or Redemdy, or a Levy. So I really, really wanted to have those plays available to me, especially the Ringo Worm in turn 3. It came up a lot for me that I just Magnamid search this, normal summon it, Sacred, add back a Lubellion, Samsara, add back a Magnamid, do some synchro plays, and then you can banish it and do another synchro push or just an Access Code OTK push. So these were really, really good. The lines where Samsara tribute summons a Magnamid over the Seal, and then you get the Ringo Worm out, are definitely not as happening often, but they definitely happen if you have like 5 dragon cards, unique dragon cards. It's really, really good to have this in deck. This is more for follow-up or for random 3 to 4 card combos where this is like a really decent normal summon. But overall, I think they give the deck so much gas in the form of a turn 3, while not really bricking you and adding to like very full combo hands, where I think these are definitely not bricks and are definitely worth playing and like really, really decent engine requirements, and they help the deck to gas through things turn 3 and also give us some much needed variant and consistency in the form of normal summon and Samsara in the form of the mill as well. Even Ringo Worm is a good mill if we have Resonator access, so that definitely comes up as well. The 1 Dragon Ravine, you could also think about cutting these 3 and then play more non-engine. But like I said, this would make the turn 3 worse. You could get away with it because then you have one non-engine. Maybe the opponent cannot push through your board as often, but because these are more accessible than non-engine, because we don't need to draw them to get access of the for them, I figured it was definitely worth it, especially if you consider that without these two, we are lacking a few normal summons, which would lead to more bricks, which I definitely don't like, because the lack of quick launches makes this deck a little brickier compared to Dragon Link, in the sense that sometimes we just draw big cards and we don't have the ability to play through an Ash, for example. But other than that, I really like them, and they give the deck at least some sort of toolboxy vibe where Dragon Queen can always be able to use to either get Lubellian access or get Levy access. So it really felt helpful to use these, and I definitely wouldn't cut them, even though they don't seem that clean and they seem a little bricky. But the more you play with them and the more optimal you play with them, you figure out that these are really strong, and I really enjoyed using them, and it felt really good, especially to use Ring of Worm, because ever since the card got released, I really wanted to play it because it feels so good, right? But there was never really a deck to use it, but I think in this deck is the first home for Ring of Worm to be actually a good card. Speaking about good cards, definitely the MVP of the whole tournament were the Horus cards, with only 3 Mseti, 1 King Sarcophagus, and 1 Quebecseneuf. We use Quebecseneuf because it's a wing beast, so we can go into Romulus. If you don't play the Ravine package, you definitely would use something else with a better on-field effect, but because we don't care about the on-field effect, Quebecseneuf is fine because it's a wing beast, like I said, and it's also 2.5k, so the Horus engine by itself is already 5.5k attack. That's really good. Like I said, this engine is insane going first. Going second, I still sometimes side it out against decks which have a lot of removal, which can also hit the back row. Against Unchained, for example, it's really good to just side these out, play more Bystials, and then just go for a beatdown strategy. Going first, having them is fine. You definitely won't be hard losing because you draw them in that matchup, but a lot of times it's fine to side these out. You just have to figure out which matchups those are. Those will definitely depend on the amount of disruption the opponent has, and then also on the non-engine you want to put in. So if you want to play way more non-engine, these are usually the cards which you side out next to the 1 Black Metal, some Savadragon, and the Ring of Worm. And that just really helps going second to push through boards and get more non-engine going. While going first, we are like very combo-centric, not a lot of non-engine. So game 1, if we lose the die roll, can be a little tough, but post-side, or going second time is really good, and we can just play a very aggressive Bystial beatdown strategy with a very good backbone of the Bystial resource loop in the form of Regain and Macromet, and these cards are just completely nuts. Also, did you know that King Sarcophagus has an effect on field where you can just send something in battle? Didn't know that, came up a few times to out annoying stuff, and helps you just clean the board, and these are completely insane in the grind game as well. So if King Sarcophagus stays on the field, this is so insane. I had simplified game states where these alone were carrying so much and gave me like 2 more turns to draw into something. Overall, these feel insane, and I highly can only recommend playing them. I also tried to play them in Dragon Link as just additional starters, but then there were too many one-offs which you could mill with Boot Sector, Recharger. It felt like more awkward to use them, and you didn't really need them that much in Dragon Link, so I scrapped that idea and just played this version again. For the next engine, 3 Vision Resonator and 1 Crimson Gaia. Did you know Crimson Gaia doesn't add on activation, but you can use it every main phase? I didn't know that because I didn't read my cards. This card is completely insane because this engine is a free level 2 tuner every turn. But other than that, this did its job. It did contribute to a few bricks where I drew Vision Resonator twice, but I think this is just variance, and I definitely wouldn't change the ratio of these. But overall, these are really insane. Good mills, good discards, good extenders, and 3-card combos. This is all what you want. They also don't lock you into synchro, similar to Excel Synchron. So the ability to be a good discard and also just flex into link spam definitely makes this very good in my opinion. And because we are lacking any tuner access whatsoever, these are definitely the best which you can play, especially because of the discard aspect. These cards were definitely overperforming, especially Crimson Gaia. Always being able to add another Vision Resonator was very good in like simplified game states where 1 Baron push is more than enough to win the game, and these just help you get there. For the non-engine, I played 3 Droplet. This card was really solid. I really liked it in the main deck because it's basically good against everything. Of course, sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's better. Against Unchained, it's better because you can stop the XZs like the Seeking. Against Rescue Ace, it's a little worse because you cannot deal with their backer. You can just deal with their monster disruption, but you can always use it on a Preventer, which is really, really impactful, but also really, really good in combination with backer removal. For example, if they end on Baron, having Droplet plus Lightning Storm is an FTK basically, so that's really, really solid. And then I played 3 talents. I still really like these because they are not only generically very good going second, but also help us going first if we get Ash on the Amseti. So if you get Ash on Amseti, talents draw 2 usually lets us play through this Ash very, very easily, and then we already hand loop the opponent's once, so we don't even need to have that much of a ceiling anymore to still put up a threatening board, because if we hand loop them for another time with a Levy and then we just end on like Seal Masquerena, that's already so good. Them having only 4 cards into a Seal Masquerena, there's nothing more you can really ask for. And then lastly, 3 Nib. This caught a lot of people off guard and I really, really liked it. Nib is not that popular right now, which makes this actually a little better, because people don't respect it as much, and I figured in a deck like Dragon Link, where our end board is not very that impactful, but has a shit ton of follow-up, just having our Seal Masquerena plus this is an FTK. In matchups where it's completely dead, it offers as a Droplet target, it offers as an Amseti target, it offers as a Dragon Ravine target, so I never really bricked on this, and I could always get value out of these, so I really, really liked them. And also was a little scared of combo, so I figured I wanted to have some hand traps in the main, and then post side I could only really fit in Droll plus Nib, and I just wanted to have them somewhere, so I figured Nib is better to main deck than Droll, at least in my opinion, for Dragon Link. And they were a little bit weird, and people were caught off guard and were questioning the spot in the deck, but it really, really worked, so I would definitely do it again. For the extra deck, we have a Striker Dragon, we have Romulus, we have 2 Seal. Yeah, these are very, very standard. You don't really recycle Striker Dragon all too much. Sometimes you just do it because you can, but you don't really go for the second Striker Dragon all too often, so definitely don't feel forced to recycle this nearly as often as you do in Dragon Link. Then we have IP, SP, Dark, Unicorn, access code for the generic links. SP definitely not as broken as I figured, but it's still a very, very solid card, of course. But there's just Fenrir in the format, which so often can just run over this. But it's definitely fine. Having access to Unicorn and SP is really, really cool, because sometimes Masquerena into Unicorn is still the better play. And sometimes we could also end on Seal, SP, and IP, and then IP can still go into a Unicorn. These were weird game states and usually only happened post turn 1 if we needed the SP to break the board and had a shit ton of bodies, but we couldn't OTK. Definitely came up though, so I definitely still would do that. And these all come up plenty of times. The 2 Seals come up a lot to play around a Nib because we never Darklock ourselves, so if we get nipped, we can always make a second Seal afterwards. Also for the Seal Tribute Summon lines with the Samsara, the second Seal comes up, so I definitely would play this in this version. I'm always a 2 Seal enjoyer, you know it, and I would definitely play it in this version as well. For the Synchros, Axel Synchro came up a lot to link Synchro climb into 10s if we don't have Rebellion access. Also, this being an 8 came up a lot for Zombie Vampire actually, which is something which I didn't think about earlier, but we could make this, get the level 2 tune again, go for Zombie Vampire, and then dig for more Vision Resonators, more Dragon Engine if we need it. Came up a bit and was decent definitely, so I would still definitely play it. Omega didn't come up as often. It only really came up if we got like completely uncontested. I still definitely would play it because the ability to just summon this twice plus a Levy is insane. You don't need more than that. Having a Seal plus that is definitely all you really need to win the game. So I definitely would still play it, but I made this less in actual games than I did in testing, of course, because we got disrupted way more. But the good thing about this, if you get disrupted, you kind of got into this, because in my opinion, if you get hand trapped and you still end on a shit ton of disruption and follow up, you just basically hand loop them, right? You might not make this all the time, but its spirit is there. And then lastly, Dispater and Baron made these way more in actual gameplay than in testing, because these are just so safe to put on the board. Especially Dispater came up way more because I always wanted to get that Seyfried back and have just Seal Masquerena plus Dispater for the maximum amount of follow-up and a disruption. and really felt clean. Lastly, I played one Chaos Angel. I would definitely cut this for a Typhoon, but I don't really have a Typhoon right now. I played the Saturday event, like the 6 rounds with 40-ish people with the Typhoon, and I never made it, but it was a very, very clean slot in my opinion still. I think it's just variance and would probably come up in more niche scenarios than a Chaos Angel, because in my opinion, Chaos Angel probably lost its slot with the SP, because now we got a Link 2 which can banish on summon, so we don't really need the Chaos Angel anymore, and using it as a tower never really came up, and we can use it for OTK pushes, but because we play access code, these OTKs probably are available in some other line as well, so I don't think Chaos Angel is that necessary anymore. So I would probably play a Typhoon or an Underworld Goddess above it. This is just a flex spot. You could also play an Almirage to unbrick Resonators, which would have sometimes came up, but I figured all of these hands were so bad that I didn't really want it. I had one hand, I think, where an Almirage would have been good, so maybe it would also be this. So this is definitely the slot which we want to flex on and see if we find something better. Like I said, Typhoon, Underworld Goddess, or Almirage are probably the go-tos for me, and I will just have to decide between them. And then lastly, one Zombie Vampire. You could argue to play another rank 8. I don't think it ever came up. The only thing which would be worth it is cut the complete access code talker package and go for the OTK rank 8 package. But at that point, I feel like access code is just better at OTKing than that. It seems a little niche, but it could be something which you want to play maybe. I think it's 3 or 4 slots. It would be tough to fit them, but it could be something interesting to play, because this is probably the best thing rank 8 can do, is like do cheesy OTKs. Is it worth it to play? I don't know, probably not. Now for the side deck, definitely very happy with the side deck. We have the Thrust package, of course, with the Herald, definitely still very solid. We have a Lightning Storm, and we have a beautiful Feather Duster, which I picked up in the weekend. These were really, really solid. I played against Runic Stun, and I had Lightning Storm plus Droplet for an insane play, which was really good because the Hugin was already on the board, so I could very easily negate it. Yeah, these are all really, really good. You side them in so many times going second. Also, still side Lightning Storms against Unchained. It just deals with the Link and the Wave King Caesar, so if you have a Bystial plus Lightning Storm, you basically dealt with all of their board, which is really, really good. 3 draw to hit combo, and also being a very good thing to side in going first to have more auto wins, similar to Nib. If you have full combo plus draw, you usually win the game. This is almost as good as siding a Summon Limit, a TC Boo, a Skill Drain. These, in my opinion, they don't take away a lot from each other, and this also sometimes being an auto win going second, and most of the time being very, very impactful going second, definitely makes it super worth it in my opinion. And also because our ceiling is so high, if we go uncontested, seal, IP, hand loops, I don't think we need any floodgates like dedicated going first slots, which only have one purpose. One Druid's Worm. Bystials are really, really solid. I would like to play more. I would like to play one Baldrake. You could cut the Caught by the Grave for that, but I figured Caught by the Grave worked so well against Droll, against Shifter going first, and just works good in this all-in combo deck, which we kind of are going first. We are just very broken at it because we have such a high impactful end board, but we also have a shit ton of follow-up with it. I figured just going for the full combo going first felt good, so Caught by the Grave helps with that. And it's also not completely dead going second. I didn't really set it in going second, but in theory, in the mirror, you set it in going second, and then maybe in a few other matchups, for example, against Branded Chimera, it's really, really good as well. So in all of these niche scenarios, this comes up as a good slot to put in, and I liked it. Never saw it, but I would still play it. And then lastly, such an Is it even... I don't know. I figured this card is so broken. There are a lot of people which are playing it, but it's not everyone, and I figured this card is completely insane. Not only is this a floodgate against basically any deck, it's usually always a 2-for-1 because the moment they put 2 bodies on the board, you just flip this, and then they have to commit 2 more bodies to go for an SP, for example, to do any meaningful plays against basically everything. But more importantly, this is also really good against purely going second. They cannot go into Noir, and they also cannot go for a draw 4. They can only go for a draw 2 if they have like full combo. And the reason this alone would be good enough to play this is basically then just the Book of Eclipse, but instead of giving your opponent 2 draws in the end phase, you just leave the bodies on the field. This is really good against Rescue Ace. It's really good against Unchained. One of the few cards which is good against both and does something against the deck which is kind of unfair. For example, if they go for Airlifter and then put the Hydrant on the board with the emergency, them just flipping this and them not being able to go into link summons and get the rescue ace into the graveyard and then get the turbulence out is really, really helpful. And it's one of the few impactful cards against this deck going first, while also being really, really good going second against purely, and also being really good against a lot of decks going first. So I really, really like this, and I can only highly recommend to play Spellbound. It feels like the best card in the format right now, in my opinion. It is so insane. And that's basically it for the deck profile. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, there is still a few tweaking in here. The side deck, a little bit, like 1 or 2 cards probably, and then the extra deck with the Chaos Angel slot, you probably need to do some tweaking there. But apart from that, the main deck feels really, really solid, and I definitely like how it feels. I like the consistency, I like the ceiling, I like the follow-up. Everything feels so great with this deck. It can play through a lot, it can play into a lot. It feels really, really cool, and could be the new evolution stage of Dragon Link, going away from the Rockets and going into the Horus for more explosive plays. Could definitely be it. Making use out of all of these unique one-off dragons is super fun. The toolbox, while not as, how can I say, toolboxy, it's not as linear. It's definitely still there. You just have to find the lines which get you there. But overall, it's really, really fun. If you've played Dragon Link like I did for such a long time, definitely try this one out. It's super fun, it's super refreshing, and might actually be better than Dragon Link. Like I said, I'm still not 100% sure. I think it's definitely up there, and the difference is very, very minimal, if whatsoever. But it could even be better than Dragon Link, which is really, really cool. Hope you guys enjoyed today's class. Class is dismissed. You guys are free to leave. Professor Sunreis out. Peace.